The Welsh Conservative leadership race is a contest between a Bohemian Rhapsody-loving former banker and an Abba fan who helped found a film festival. Davies and Suzy Davies are competing for the chance to lead the Conservatives into the 2021 Assembly election. Here, the two tell us about their childhoods, their political awakening, and the ideas and experiences that have shaped their lives, and could shape Wales. Suzy Davies, South Wales West AM. Suzy Davies. There is at least one thing Suzy Davies, 55, has in common with David Cameron. They are both fans of Benny Hill's 1971 novelty hit, Ernie, the Fastest Milkman in the West. It was the first record Ms. Davies ever bought, and Mr. Cameron named the song about the lovelorn milkman as one of his Desert Island discs back in 2006 and entertained a TV studio audience during an advertisement break in 2015 by reciting from it. Benny Hill is Ernie the Milkman. Image, Daily Mirror. During the course of her life she has lived in places as varied as Bridgend, the Cynon Valley, Cardiff, Brecon, Swansea, Newtown, Aberystwyth and now the Dyfi Valley. Suzy Davies, the Welsh Conservative leadership candidate, as a child with her baby sister, Hilary. Image, Suzy Davies. Her dad, Hywel Davies, worked for the South Wales Electricity Board and his work meant she, along with her mum, Orwyn, and younger sister, Hilary, regularly had to up sticks and move. She spent the biggest chunk of her childhood in Cwmbach, near Aberdare, where she said the local politics were Labour, 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 nothing but Labour. Even at this early stage, she wondered why there wasn't more diversity in local politics. "You'd watch the telly," she said. "There were 3 channels in those days. You knew there were other parties in existence, and I just thought, well, why don't we see anything about them here?" Suzy Davies in Cwmbach with her older cousin, Alison. Image, Suzy Davies. The next stop for the family was Cardiff, where they set up home in Lisbon, and the way she spoke was the focus of curiosity. "I remember getting on the bus and being asked by children if I was Pakistani because of my accent," she said. At the age of 16 she was uprooted again. She admits she took the news that they were moving to Brecon with a slightly heavy heart because she liked the bright lights of Cardiff, but this was a happy twist in the tale. She said, "It turned out to be a completely marvelous experience. I went to Brecon High School, and met lifelong friends. It's a bit like the valleys in a sense in that everybody knows everybody else and really feels a sense of responsibility to each other, and that is the thing that has really stuck with me as a political imperative if you like." Suzy Davies with her friend, Rama, on a school trip to London. Image, Suzy Davies. Miss Davies was by no means as a committed conservative, but she had no doubt that politics was important and had a direct effect on people's lives. The 1974 three-day week stands out in her memories. "I remember the lights used to go off and I had to do my homework by candlelight," she said. It coincided with when the IRA were very active, and so we had bomb scares in our schools as well. Politics felt really up close and personal at certain stages. Coal piled outside a power station at the start of the three-day week. Image, Manchester Evening News Archive. A further moment of political awakening came when people I knew went to fight in the Falklands, and then that really does bring it home. Ms. Davies studied law at Exeter University but came back to Brecon instead of immediately pursuing a postgraduate qualification. She worked in a tourist information centre and then spent fun and culture-packed years in posts at theatres in Swansea and Newtown and at Aberystwyth's art centre. A life-changing moment came when she met her now husband Geraint. "How traditional is this?" she said. "I met him at a friend's wedding. My next-door neighbour in Brecon married his next-door neighbour up in the Dyfi Valley. He farms and runs a caravan park and they have 2 sons, Alex and Callum. She sent the boys to Sunday school so they would be able to make up their own minds about faith. You never really know what kind of comfort it can bring you later on," she said. "I've never had a problem going into faith-based meetings or anything of that nature because one thing that always stuns me is the level of fellowship that faith brings. Regardless of what your faith is, that doesn't really matter, and how people support each other." Whether that's through politics or faith, they're both great. Suzy Davies with the Conservative Assembly leader Andrew R.T. Davies. In 2012, Image, Richard Williams, she decided to enroll at the University of Glamorgan and gain the legal qualifications she needed to practice as a solicitor. Re-entering the workforce brought financial challenges. It actually cost me to go to work because of childcare, she said, adding, I understand how childcare is a big deal for families, it's not just for women, because not everyone is in the fortunate position I was to have somebody who could basically tide me over financially because I was married. The experience of trying to buy a house and a desire to be able to do things for herself helped her, as she puts it, discover she was a conservative in her 30s. At that time in your life, not paying a lot of tax is something that appeals to you, she said. She became involved with a local Conservative association and was encouraged by party stalwart, and now Montgomeryshire MP, Glyn Davies to stand for election. In the 2005 Westminster election she finished in third place in Plaid Cymru held Carmarthen East and Dyn FWR, and she came second in the 2007 Assembly contest when she stood against Liberal Democrat Kirsty Williams in Brecon and Radnorshire. She tried again in the same constituency in the 2010 Westminster vote before winning an Assembly seat on the South Wales West regional list in 2011. Suzy Davies, then the Conservative candidate for Brecon and Radnorshire, with then Tory leader David Cameron, this enthusiastic Welsh speaker, who relearned the language after losing it as a child, enjoys friendships beyond the Tory tribe. I've got friends with all kinds of different political views, and of course in the Assembly itself being such a small institution, you can't let really significant political differences spoil relationships, she said. I just don't get that. I mean, there are people I don't seek out deliberately, but it's not a case of being uncivil or awful. One of the big regrets about politics at the moment is how easy it is for the vile elements of it to have a voice. When she escapes Cardiff Bay, she and her husband enjoy takeaway. For us, because we don't see each other that often, a Saturday night in is just as nice as a Saturday night out, she explained. The establishment that does best out of us in Powys is the Mac and Lith kebab shop. They are the best kebabs I've ever eaten. I wouldn't go there otherwise. The first album she ever bought was Abba's Arrival, and she is excited at the thought of going to see Mamma Mia too. There's nothing wrong with lightness and triviality, she said. I think the world could do with a little more of it occasionally. She was a founding board member of the Welsh International Film Festival, and her favorite movie is the Frank Capra classic It's a Wonderful Life. A scene from Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life Image publicity picture. I just love that idea of one small individual making a huge difference, she said. A Jane Austen fan, she insists fiction is important. I think you can learn an enormous amount about the human experience and human nature through fiction, she said. A book that really resonates with me and that I like enormously is one called Behind the Scenes at the Museum by an author called Kate Atkinson. Yvonne W. Alexander's Bloody Iced Fought is sitting on her desk, but it may be a little while before she can pick that up. She said, I can't wait for this leadership thing to be over because I really want to read that. Paul Davies, Preseli, Pembrokeshire AM. Paul Davies, Image, National Assembly. Paul Davies, 49, did not grow up in a part of the world known as a hotbed of conservatism. The last time a Conservative was elected to represent Ceredigion was in 1874. You might have expected a first-language Welsh schoolboy growing up on a small farm in Pontchin, near Llandysol, who has an interest in politics to tap into the area's liberal or Plaid Cymru traditions. A bit of it. Mr. Davies' friends yanked his leg about his heartfelt commitment to the Conservative cause. His dedication was such that, at a time when Margaret Thatcher's poll tax was a focus of controversy, he was nicknamed Poll Tax. IORI, his dad, was a committed Conservative, and his son is still excited by convictions that were so evident to his classmates at Newcastle Emlyn Comprehensive School. Paul Davies argues Margaret Thatcher rescued Britain. Image, PA, he said, I joined the Conservative Party in Margaret Thatcher's heyday. I think it was her inspiration, her motivation, her leadership that persuaded me to join the Conservative Party in the first place. I'm a conservative because I believe in choice, I believe in the freedom of the individual, I believe in opportunity, and I believe in personal responsibility. Those are the values that I hold dear. Politics was a regular subject of conversation around the dinner table with his dad and his mum, Mare. Thatcher's arrival looked like nothing less than a moment of national rescue, he said. During Margaret Thatcher's premiership, when she actually became Prime Minister, the country was facing bankruptcy, unfortunately, because Britain was still reeling from Labour's winter of discontent and a socialist government which actually left people not being buried, rubbish not being collected from our streets and our homes in the dark for days on end, and it was Margaret Thatcher and the Conservative Party, in my view, that came to Britain's rescue at the time. He describes his home as very traditional. He said, I would go to church with my mother. I was a church warden when I was 21 years of age, believe it or not. I'm still a Christian. I don't go to church as much as I should perhaps, but of course that remains an important part of my life. Preseli, Pembrokeshire AM. Paul Davies has experience of winning in a Labour Conservative swing seat after his A-levels. He said, he made a conscious decision to go into the world of work. He was okay in mathematics, so he joined a branch of Lloyd's and worked for the bank for nearly 2 decades. This gave him an insight into the challenges facing businesses in West Wales, but a very important development took place in November 1994. He moved to the Cardigan branch, and a few weeks later a new member of staff named Julie joined. They are now husband and wife and live in Blanfus, North Pembrokeshire. It was not love at first sight. He said, I wouldn't say so, no. It took us a number of years, actually, to get together. These things develop, don't they? The story behind Andrew R.T. Davies' ousting as Welsh Conservative leader. Mr. Davies would go on to become a business manager looking after between 300 and 400 businesses in Pembrokeshire, and his commitment to conservatism only deepened. In his view, the party had used its time in government to turn Britain's economy around. He served as chairman of the Ceredigion Conservative Association and deputy chairman of Mid and West Wales Conservatives, and got stuck into local election battles as a candidate. In the 2000 by-election and the 2001 UK election he stood in Ceredigion, finishing third, and in 2003 he was the candidate in the Preseli Pembrokeshire Assembly contest. Paul Davies defeated Labour's Tamsin Dunwoody in 2007. He had another go in 2007 and this time ousted Labour. Politics was now a full-time job, but the Assembly is not just a legislature but a community of people who have all been on similar journeys. Cross-party friendships are still possible, he said. I got friends from all political parties. I have to admit, when I first went to the Assembly, I thought it'd be very tribal indeed. But I quickly found out that that certainly wasn't the case. Of course, in the Assembly chamber we make our political points as we should, but afterwards we can have a cup of tea together or a drink together, and I think that's absolutely crucial, because at the end of the day we're all human beings. He arrived at a time when the Conservatives looked, briefly, on the verge of joining Plaid Cymru and the Liberal Democrats in a non-Labour coalition. Today he is adamant that the Conservatives need to win Labour-held constituencies to stand a chance of entering government. We have to win more first-past-the-post constituency seats if we are ever going to have a chance of being in government, he said. We have to win seats, like Gower, like the Vale of Glamorgan, like Cardiff North, like Wrexham, the Vale of Clwyd. Paul Davies relaxes by reading. He is particularly fond of thrillers, and enjoys walking and visiting historical attractions. A further challenge will be ensuring that internal divisions over Brexit do not hold back progress. He said, I'd like to think that I've got the ability to bring the different strands of the Conservative Party together, the Assembly members, members of Parliament, activists, supporters, and bring them together to create that Team Wales approach, because I think it's absolutely crucial. Divided parties don't actually win elections, and I hope we will do that. I'm confident that I will be able to do that if I become leader. Mr. Davies lives a high-mileage life, journeying between Pembrokeshire and Cardiff, and when he is at the wheel of his car he enjoys listening to Bohemian Rhapsody by his favourite rock band, Queen. He admits that the worst part of the job is the travelling back and forth, being away from your family on a weekly basis. But there is no sign of the inner drive which propelled him from Paunch into the Senedd starting to flag. "I just keep going," he said. "I don't need much sleep if I'm honest, so I'm very lucky in that respect."